Let's see what's going on. Archeantis 7. As a DM, do you allow characters stowing, sheathing a large two-handed weapon like an 8 foot to 15 foot spear or polearm? Uh, that is a really, really great question. My son, I've got a 15-year-old son who is very involved in historical European martial arts. HEMA is what the cool kids call it. And he actually he's taught me a lot about more realistic weapon use and especially weapon storage and conveyance. And so actually it's going to depend on the group that I'm playing with, but if the group is wanting things to have a little more verisimilitude, realism's a silly thing to talk about in a make believe game, but a little more of that, then yeah, like it's kind of like a carried thing. It's very, very hard to stow that. I guess you can do that in Skyrim somehow, just tuck that in your pocket. But yeah, it's hard to do in a game. So I think that, one of the ways that I've dealt with this in the past, even with characters that I've played, because I actually like polearm fighting quite a bit, even before the feat made it more popular in fifth edition, is I have shown it to where it's like, kind of a thing. Oh, it looks like the Protean's on its last leg here. So yeah, let's see what happens here. Um, that's a miss. Big whiff from Gelatinous Cub. Sorry, I called you out there. But ultimately, what's going on with the spear is I will allow some kind of like folding up situation, which is also not very realistic, but it for some reason feels a little more realistic than just carrying that 15-foot weapon around with you at all times. So yeah, that's what I would do, is probably let them have a magical way to make it smaller that they could carry it easier. M. James 74. Will there be any? Oop, I think that Protean might have gone down. Yeah. So Nuclear John went nuclear with the wizard and brought down the Protean, but that pesky necromancer stole Nuclear John's soul. And Nuclear John is now reincarnated. So good luck in trying to make that happen in the next 18 minutes. All right, let's see. So will there be any DDB extras with Tasha's frames, themes, backdrops, dice, etc.? Maybe a peek at your character screen. No peek at the character screen yet, but yeah, we would intend to have all of those just like we have for all of the other books, and we'll provide more details on that as soon as we have them. Z, wow, that's a lot of numbers. Username. Do you plan to add functionality for changing casting stats? Example, Intelligence Paladin or Wisdom Eldritch Knight. We do not have that anywhere on our short-term or medium term roadmap. It's not something, we're trying to do the best that we can, and we have gaps here that we're trying to shore up. We're trying to cover the official functionality the best that we can, and then if we moved into other places from there, it would be moving into optional rules elements that are represented in the rules. So spell points, other kinds of ability scores, that sort of thing. Changing the actual casting stats is not something that we have really had on the roadmap, because number one, we haven't seen a ton of demand for it, but it also has some interplay with the just kind of the core of the game that could mess things up here or there. And so I will say, though, once we're able to provide base classes, that is something that you might end up seeing, is the ability for you to potentially recreate a class with a different casting stat, and so there could be a way for you to accomplish that in the future. Gelatinous Cub is content sharing going back to 3 campaigns in January. That is the current plan. But I personally am going to see what I can do about it. But it's the current plan, because this has been something that this is something that we work out with Wizards of the Coast, and so right now that is currently the plan. We'll keep you posted. Thick Boy for Life. Any update to when secrets or supernatural gifts will be updated for D&D Beyond for Rhyme or Theros? Not at this point in time. It is something that is on the radar, though, and is absolutely part of what I was talking about earlier with some of the rules, special rules and exceptions on the character sheet. Those are things that we are grouping into that we're going to try to put some focus on in the near future. Dark Abyss Keeper with the switch to 30 minutes. Can we slightly more aggressively call the hilarious air quote dark mode joke questions? Sure. Your question actually had the inverse effect, I think. So I'm sorry that I read your question and wasted time with the hilarious joke there. My profound apologies. I am very sorry that I spent the time to read that question as opposed to get. Oh, sorry. I'll stop the trolling there. The Abyssal Chicken. I miss Briv. Will he ever be coming back? Yes, he will come back at some point. You can count on it. Artemis Themp. Any huge change done since the last time a change log was posted? So I think we posted a change log just a day or two ago for the mobile app. So I'm not exactly sure what you mean by the question, but if there is a huge change, it definitely would be in a change log. So expect to see. We got some things hovering on the horizon that we'll be able to talk about in the next couple of weeks. Command Alt Escape, I believe, is what we're trying to do with that username. A while ago, there was a talk about homebrew changes. Are you planning to just add more features or redesign the interface a bit? I'm hoping for a preview area. So with homebrew, it's something that we absolutely want to do. We've used the term revamp internally for a long time. If we pay attention to homebrew, there might be some phases where we are doing things with the current interface, but we would hope at some point to do a real facelift there and make that easier to use. The truth is, with our homebrew tools that we have available today, those are the exact same tools that our internal game content team uses to enter official content. And we just kind of, added that in as a feature that the community could use, but there wasn't a ton of time and effort spent on making it a user-friendly experience. So that is something that we would love to do in the future, and we'll get to it as soon as we have the bandwidth to do so. All right, I'm trying to make sure that I am skipping frivolous questions. Grumpy Dungeon Masters, any chance of getting a section for homebrew adventures, similar to how the adventure sources is currently set up, not just homebrew items, monsters, a place where we can write out chapters and lore. So this is something that we have also talked about and something we would love to do. We're kind of conceptualizing how that could work and how we can package that effectively for consumption. So we'll see how it goes, but it is something that we see the value of and something we would love to do in the future. RNE_Invictus. Any plans to have the ability to add custom skills to all PC sheets at once as the DM instead of going to each sheet one at a time? That's a really good question. And that, essentially a campaign level introduction of a skill. So if you happen to be playing a modern game or something, the dungeon master could add in a computer skill, and all of the characters would have access to it. That's not something that's currently on the radar, but as we move forward and we get more and more kind of customization in place, that is something that I could see potentially happening. P. When you get to your homebrew revamp, will you take another look at the ability to edit, remove published homebrew content? That one is a very tricky one. And the difficulty and complexity there comes in to, we are providing the ability for players to tap into published homebrew. So once you make homebrew public, there is a sense that it, at least a copy of that or the ability to use that does not belong to you anymore. Because people are using the platform to use those kinds of things. So, if there's ever a reason that you don't want, if you want to have complete control over how that's going, don't make it public. Once it's public, it is really, really tricky for that creator because we could have a lot of malicious intent. I'm sure that you intend this from a place of you would just like to remove something that's not working in your mind or whatever else. But other players out there using that content might not necessarily see it that way. They might enjoy it. It might work great for their games, and so on. So it's difficult to think about it in those kinds of terms. It's not to say that we won't try to accommodate the spirit and intent of what you're trying to get at, I believe, with your question here at some point in the future. But it's not quite as simple as us just allowing that to happen, because then we would have, for popular homebrew, we would have, thousands of people potentially that would be impacted by that and maybe not understand why it was being removed or revoked, and then possibly objecting to that being removed or revoked. So again, just more complexity than it probably seems like on the surface, but it is something that we've talked about, and we'll see what happens as we go forward. Rakio 407 ETA already disqualified that question. Sorry, I'm just joking. On combat tracker moving from alpha, no ETAs. Don't give the ETAs here unless we actually are formally ready to announce those release dates. But it is something that I'll tell you this. It's something that we talked about. I talked about in two different meetings this week. So it's definitely something that is being discussed and we're looking at. Grumpy Dungeon Masters, there are two of you or more? Can the shared dice rolling also have a pop out window feature? I think that is an excellent request. I don't believe it's going to right away, but that is something that I could see happening in the future. Let's see. Rune Ether, will we eventually be able to toggle homebrew sharing in campaigns? It's very confusing for new players who see my homebrew collection as their options on their sheet. On the note of unwanted homebrew options, when choosing spells through a feat, homebrew options appear even if homebrew is disabled. Is the team aware of this bug? I do believe the team is aware of that. It is on the list for us to address. To the first question, uh, improving the campaign content management part of D&D Beyond is something that is on our list. It is not a priority for the short or medium term roadmap, but it is a planned thing that we want to get to at some point. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure I skip anything that is going to seem like a waste of time. Collego is an official integration with Foundry VTT on the future timeline. No plans for that at this point in time. Foundry, I think, is doing an excellent job out there, and it is very open. And there are ways that you can utilize D&D Beyond in Foundry, and so if that works for you and your group, that is a wonderful thing. Grog the Smart, is there a way to add notes to custom actions that are visible in the action tab rather than opening the action itself? Notes to custom actions that are visible. And I don't know if there's a way to do that now. I think you're implying by your question that there's not. But I do think that's a pretty reasonable request. We'll see what we can do about that. Haven the Hair, what are you wearing for Halloween? Creepy wishes to you and yours. Well, we've definitely had some special. I always do something for Halloween in these dev updates, so I would expect this year to be no different. But you'll have to read the book to see the ending. You'll have to join me for the dev update on, I believe, the 29th, which is otherwise known as the day before the Mandalorian in the world. That's like a holiday now. But yes, you tune in there. We'll definitely you'll definitely see what I'm dressing up for Halloween. Due West, when will we get to see the Avre walkthrough that you discussed 2 weeks ago? Yeah, unfortunately, that one's on me. I intended to do it this week, and I just flat out did not get in some of the reps that I need to make sure that I'm intimate enough with a few of the mods that are available in the workshop there. So that's my fault, but it is something that we'll do. We'll see if we can make that happen next week. No, 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 no. Let's see. Sorry, duplicates. Tiamat ZX, any plans to update certain features that are meant to add speeds, yet don't currently register on the character sheet, like a Protector, Asamar's Radiant Soul for fly speed, or the Gift of the Depths Warlock Invocation for swim speed? I think, yeah, that's something that we will be looking into. Oh, I think you all did it. Congratulations, Red Leo 87. Red Leo 87 took down the reincarnated, yeah, Shazam indeed. And then the walk off strut. So congratulations, another legendary bundle for someone out there. You guys are definitely on top of it. We're gonna have to make these harder. All right, but yeah, I think that we would have plans to do some of these more special case speeds at some point in the future for sure. So we'll get to that as soon as we're able to. Let's see. Sorry, trying to parse through on the fly here. Super Cron 3. This probably has been asked before, though. Will D&D Beyond ever have a full class builder, not just subclasses? That is something that we would like to do for Homebrew at some point in the future, but no details on that yet. Tyan, when was your first time playing D&D? I was pre-white box. Yeah, that's way back. So you've been playing a long time. My first exposure to Dungeons and Dragons was actually the cartoon, living in the Bible Belt. None of the kids at school would have been able to play D&D when I was a kid. And so watched the cartoon, loved it, wished that I could play, but nobody would. I did eventually start into role-playing games with the excellent West End game Star Wars role-playing game, and then came into AD&D with Dragonlance. So that would have been the first time I played. I have since gone back and played all the other editions of the game just because I'm a fan. But yeah, that would have been my first time playing. I got a couple more minutes. No. Okay, Odin YP1. What's in the next steps for the combat tracker? I'd love to be able to see my player stats and current HP in real time. Excellent news then. Those are things that are on the near horizon for the combat tracker. Absolutely planned functionality. Let's see. X is framing the word energy. Would you be open to mixing dice sets? Potion dice for healing potions, blue dice for cold effects, red for fire spells. Yeah, that is a planned feature as well. So it's it's kind of a fun little change that we would plan to do at some point in the future. But we'll keep you posted on that. But yeah, I would love to be able to have a certain dice set for your weapon attack, for your different spell attacks, and of course the potion die needs to be used for your potion rolls. So it is something that we would love to do, and we plan to do. No. Timon of Athens. Can we get a simpler way to transfer equipment between players in a campaign? Maybe some sort of direct transfer, almost like a trade functionality. That is something that we are looking into. Just kind of inventory enhancements and revamp in general is actually on the short-term roadmap. So that is something that we're looking at, and we hope we can start talking about that a little bit more before too much longer. Let's see. Da, 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 da. One more time for one more. Jorte 90, regarding the VTT space, have you considered partnering with one of the current established VTTs rather than building a new one from the ground up? It's a little bit of a, I don't have time to go into all of that. And of course, I can't talk about all the details there, but I can tell you that we've explored options that you're probably not even aware of. And yeah, so I mean, we're doing the best that we can to find the best solution for the space. I will say that existing VTTs are, by definition, the current generation of VTTs, and what we intend to do over time, anyway, is introduce, a next gen virtual game space. It's one of the reasons we call it virtual game space as opposed to VTT, because we think that there's more to it, and we want to kind of separate that from what is the current generation. So, more details as we get closer and further down the road there. But yeah, we've considered and talked through and worked through a whole lot of options. We do have a plan. We just can't reveal all of it at this point in time. But hang in there, and we'll share more as soon as we're able to. All right, that is all the time I have for today. Thank you all very much for joining me. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate the questions as always. And congratulations on getting down the boss. Again, we're gonna have to tweak something to make it a little bit more of a contest for you all out there. But appreciate you playing Stream Heroes in our alpha here. I will be back next week for more questions and updates. Thanks everyone. Later, Gators.